Howdy, everybody, and welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. I am Matt, I am your host, and I'm talking like this, and I don't know why. As is often the case, when I start talking, about 3 seconds into it, I hear myself, and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing that? This sounds like I'm doing an impression of Christopher Walken. Why would I do that? Also, how can you? Anyway, sorry, that's more Kevin Spacey doing Christopher Walken, and that just makes me feel bad because I don't like Kevin Spacey. Anyway, stuff's going on. We've got Joe and Liz, our magnificent co-hosts. I'm using magnificent again. Just accept it. I like magnificent, and they are magnificent, like giant bronze statues that tower up to the heavens, and I guess it's just look like them, which, cool. I don't know why they're so big, but very big statues.
I have a few doubts there, Matt, but
no, big statues. I'm going with it. Anyway, lots of stuff going on. We should probably talk about some of or all of that. We're going to go with WoW Remix first, I think, because it's out now. When did it start? Like last week?
Last week. We've been here
last
for
week,
a week.
Thursday, yeah.
Less than a week.
Yeah, I was getting that and Cataclysm confused because Cataclysm Classic was yesterday, right?
Yes, Cataclysm launched May 20th. WoW Remix Mists of Pandaria launched on May 16th. Neither of them have been around very long at this point, but they're both here.
What's really funny to me about Cataclysm Classic, and we'll go back to WoW Remix soon, but I'm going to say this, is that they didn't do the pre-event.
Yeah.
They just they just went into it. It's like, here we are in the middle. It's like they treated the last raid dungeon, Ruby Sanctum. They treated that like it was the entire pre-event. It was like, here's your little Cataclysm teaser, guys.
I'm on the record as not being the biggest fan of Cataclysm, but it did have some very epic moments there in the beginning because Deathwing is coming down to destroy everything. He's tearing Azeroth apart. There are these just dramatic scenes where he's coming down and just burning everything in his path. The entire world is remade in his wake. And Cataclysm Classic launched, and, Deathwing never did his, I'm going to burn everything thing. Deathwing has not appeared in the game, except for, faction leaders talk about, Deathwing is here to kill us all, But you don't see Deathwing, which seems like a key thing. You've skipped over there, a key part of this expansion that makes it interesting and exciting that we've just walked right past, and there's no pre-expansion event that introduced the Twilight Hammer and this conflict with them and the elementals and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we don't even get that bit with the lead up to that, which was what we got in the pre-event before. Yeah,
but I feel like that sort of perfectly encapsulates what Classic has become, at least in a certain regard, right? Because it's, and I've said this before, it's on its own trajectory, and ever since they first released the, Vanilla Classic or World of Warcraft Classic, it's always been a completely different game than when it was first released.
Yeah.
And whether people want to accept that or not is a whole other thing. But when we were going through it the first time, when we were experiencing World of Warcraft for the first time, it was big set pieces, dramatic story events, and every time there was a new expansion, it was an experience. The players that are playing Classic now are not in that same mind space, or at least we can't assume that they were because they already know WoW exists. They've been potentially playing it for a while. And so I believe, and I'm generalizing here and I'm sure I'll get flack for it later, but you're going to find more likely that people don't care about that story. They care about the gameplay more than anything else versus us, which those set pieces set up entire years of content. How quickly are they running through these Classic expansions?
Yeah, how long was WoW Classic on its Wrath Classic phase? That was about a year all told,
give or take.
So they go through what was 2 years before in a year.
Yeah, so they're already condensing that time frame, right? Sorry, Liz.
Wrath Classic was released September 2022. So we've had about a year and a half. Yeah, a year and a half. I mean, so they're condensing it, but they're not crushing it into oblivion.
That's fair. I just think that it's interesting to think about the speed of its release. But going to move on now to talk about something else, because I wanted to mention this first and foremost. WoW Remix, it was last week. And in WoW Remix, transmog is free.
Yes, it is.
We have nothing else to talk about this week.
Because your gear is worthless.
Transmog should be free everywhere all the time. You should come to my house and bake me a cake and give me the cake and say, here, the cake should say, here, transmog, free. And then I would be happy and I would eat the cake. And if you threw a party and invited everyone you knew, I would be out back transmogging because I got to look good when I go in there.
It's very true.
Also, however, the thing I'm interested in is the transmog mount immediately available if you've already got it? Like you don't have to get it again, do you?
Nope, you have it. You have access. Cool. Everything in Remis is on your account. It is essentially, for a lack of a better term, a splinter time walking scenario that you exist in a bubble as you are helping the Infinite Dragonflight sort of go through Pandaria again. Which is wild, but is kind of cool because it goes into that whole, it's a payoff for the whole Bronze Dragonflight and Infinite Dragonflight reconciling, which was, I don't think, talked about nearly enough. And I think it was really, we talked about it, but I didn't hear a lot of other places talking about it. It's a really cool nod. And you are a displaced time traveler going through all of these events again, helping keep them on course by essentially redoing what we did the first time. It's a wild concept, but it works. So all of your stuff is available to you. I don't know if heirlooms are. I don't think they are.
No.
Go ahead.
Everything in your collections is available. I should say almost everything, because if you have those toys that give you flight paths or exploration,
those don't work.
Those don't work. They did work in the beta test. I was reading about that, but they do not work online. So yeah, you have most of your stuff. So you have all of your transmog, which is back to the most
pretty much what I want.
Thing. Yeah. So
I'm playing a druid, so unfortunately transmog doesn't matter.
Well, that was a life choice, Joe. I'm playing an evoker, and it is terrible because I make a nice transmog in my human form, and then it's but when I use any of my dragon skills, I'm transformed into a dragon, and some parts of my transmog show on the dragon, but most of them don't. So they show on the dragon with whatever dragon armor I'm wearing, which is armor you pick in character creation, and it's all mismatched. It makes me crazy. Ah!
Yeah, this is one of many reasons I will never play one of those dragon folks.
And
it's fine. I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna get through this somehow.
It will be okay. I believe in you. I don't know. I've been playing a lot of remists. Have you gotten?
I love remists. That's great. I love that name, remists.
That's what our guild calls it, and that's what I think the internet's been calling it, which I think it fits perfectly. Liz, have you gotten to play any of it yet?
I have, because I've gotten to play enough that this evoker is making me crazy.
Yeah.
I haven't played a ton. I know people are already max level, and I know leveling goes very quickly, but I think I'm level 26 or 27 in there somewhere. So it's very interesting leveling an evoker, because that's something you could not do until now. You got an evoker, and it was level 50 something, and you played through the starting experience, and that kind of unlocked your whole kit of abilities. And then you just go through Dragonflight, doing the 60 to 70 experience everyone else is doing. And now they've thrown this into Remis, and everyone starts at 10, levels up to 70. So it's interesting to see these classes as a start to finish leveling experience, which is new. I kind of prefer playing it this way, having things slowly unlock instead of just here's a whole class, learn it right now.
I really like that as well. And the other interesting thing is they're doing something in Remis that we literally asked for, at least I asked for, when they started doing Seasons of Discovery. They're giving you access to other classes' abilities via the gem system, which is phenomenal.
Why don't we talk about the gem system then, since we're, that's actually one of the bullet lists. So go, Joe.
So you will get gems that drop from kills, quest rewards, your caches, because instead of getting gear from quests you complete, you get an infinite cache. And inside the cache is something that's level appropriate for what your character is, whether it's a new piece of gear or whether it's a gem. The gems can be combined and they can be and upgraded into like static stats. So you have like your mastery, your evasion, all of the stuff that we would come to expect are there. And they can be put into basically all the pieces of gear. They're prismatic slots.
Prismatic gem slots. Those are kind of your normal gems. Those are what you think of when you think of gems.
Then there are the specialty gems, like I think it's the Tinker gems, and what's the other one?
Tinker, Meta, and Cogwheel gems.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about those, Liz? I want you to talk some.
So there's the Cogwheel gem that goes in your boot slot. Those are all movement abilities. They're movement abilities from every class. They're movement abilities from Shadowlands Covenants. And, you get these gems and you're filling in whatever movement ability you want. I think it's really cool, except I don't have any of the movement abilities that I would like. I have Sprint.
I have Disengage.
Sprint is nice, but it's on a 1 minute cooldown, and even I, who usually play a paladin, and paladins feel a little sluggish when I'm trying to run along after my fellow raid members after a wipe, but Sprint feels extremely slow because a 1 minute cooldown. What is this? A minute? So, but it has this whole collection of movement abilities, so you can customize and pick what you want. Then there are the Tinker gems, which are a whole wide array of effects and bonuses. Then there are the Meta gems. Meta gems go in your helmet slot. You can only have one of them. Those give you a new active ability. And these are just, I don't think any of the Meta gems are class abilities. I think they're just
really rad abilities, yeah.
Yeah, I think all of them are kind of longer cooldowns. Found the right meta gem for me yet, but I'm still collecting them. So you get these as you're leveling up, and it does allow you to fine tune your playstyle.
Yeah, and it's really it's cool because it adds extra flavor to your classes, right? Yeah. I really like that, and it makes certain classes feel fresh. Now, something that Liz said earlier about my transmog being a hell of my own making is not exactly true, since I threw the choice of what class and race I was playing to the guild, because I couldn't decide because there were too many tempting options. But it's interesting because I've tried playing a druid in particular. I've tried playing a boom chicken before, and it just never stuck. But this time, because there's extra stuff where maybe I'm casting, I'm doing my moonfire spam, but all of a sudden now rockets are firing out of my shoulders and meteors are crashing down from the sky. And there's just a ton of stuff going on, but it just makes it feel fresh. And it is a really, really nice touch. And I do like the gem system. The other thing that I would think we should mention, the gems are hot swappable. You have the ability to pull them out of gear and put them into new gear at will, or pull them out and put new ones in or different ones in. So you get an extra action button item or an extra action button thing that pops up that lets you do this. And you can just do it whenever you want. You're tired of disengage, you can go put sprint in. You're tired of sprint, you can go put something else in. You have all of these options, and I think it's really cool, a really cool way to play the game and to give players sort of the option to mess around with it and keep it fresh. The other item you get, or one of the other extra action buttons you get, is the ability to summon a bronze portal to just scrap your gear, because there's no money. Money is useless, essentially, unless you're buying food. You get bronze ingots, or I think it's just called bronze.
Yes, yeah, just bronze.
Which you use to upgrade items, purchase gear, buy transmogs, because yes, you can just buy transmogs. Did you ever want this Pandaria raid sets that you never could get the complete thing for? Cool. Just scrap all the gear you've been getting out of those infinite caches and just buy it from the vendor that's just chilling there.
Click. Gear, transmog, click.
Which is fantastic, by the way. And you can get the Alphar gear, raid gear, dungeon gear, world boss gear. All that stuff is available for you to just buy with bronze for transmog, because it's a reward for you playing this event, because that's awesome. You can also upgrade your pieces. If you feel like you're out leveling that staff you have, here's some bronze. chuck it in the system, push button, here, you can keep using that staff, just move along with your day. It's a really seamless experience, which I think is really, really cool. And it's really easy to get a lot done in a little amount of time and not feel like you're constantly tethered to like a central location. And you just kind of go around and just do whatever, complete the zones. And I'm going to let Liz talk about this because I think it's actually interesting, the jewelry and trinkets, how they're doing that. So you want to talk about that, Liz?
Yes, I mean, this feels so much like Warcraft, but it also doesn't feel like Warcraft. It's very fresh. So yes, as you're leveling, you will be collecting gear and scrapping gear and buying gear if you want, but you won't find any jewelry, no amulets, no rings, no trinkets, none of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of these are rewards from achievements. You will unlock the ability to purchase these things simply by completing an achievement. So by doing scenarios, by completing all of the heroic scenarios, you will get a ring. By completing all of the heroic dungeons, you will get another ring. By completing all of the Pandaria raids, you will get an amulet. And by
on normal difficulty, by the way.
Normal difficulty, so you can't LFR your way through those.
The icon trinket what you get when you hit level 70.
Okay,
which is another one.
I was trying to read this, and the first trinket you get is completing 3 campaign scenarios. So as you go through, you should be working your way through this first trinket. And interestingly, all of these things, they have no stats. 0 stats. You just pick them up and shove gems in them. So you get them and you make them whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of, naturally upgradable because if you have prismatic sockets, which just use those generic gems, those gems can be combined and upgraded into more powerful gems, a lot like you do in Diablo right now. So you don't have to go around hunting for a new neck or a new ring. You just upgrade those gems and put whatever stats you want. You can switch it out on the fly. So if you're playing a class that it's like, this spec really needs mastery, this spec really needs haste, you can just swap them out. Done.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say is that it does feel a little fussy to micromanage these. And it's like, I get a new piece of gear. Okay, I got to take my old piece of gear and I got to click to get rid of that gem. And then I got to put the gem in the new piece of gear. And then I equip the new. It does. The management side feels a little unrefined. It works. It's really cool, but it does feel a little. It's got some rough edges.
I will say that this has been probably the most fun leveling experience I've had in a long while. And I really despite the fussiness, because I will admit, there's a little bit of that fussiness, I will agree. But despite that, I think it's absolutely a really great way to level and experience the leveling. So this is something that after this is done, I really hope that we see more of in the future, or I hope that it's in the works. I would absolutely love to have. Maybe they did something like this with Wrath, or maybe they did something like this with, pick any expansion, because it's a really cool, neat way to level alts.
You know what expansion would really work well with this? Warlords.
Yeah, I would agree.
Warlords, where you don't have to worry too much about getting gear, and where it's not the real problem Warlords had was there's that long lull at the end, and it's super long. I mean, you got barely any content. There was a patch that was look, we got a selfie camera. And then there's the end patch, which has a bunch of content. It's got a new raid. It's got a new open world zone. And you will be spending the next 10 months in that open world zone. Whereas if you were doing a remix, you have it for 3 months and you're done. And you see Warlords over 3 months. And you could break it up. So instead of having the first tier be a bunch of separate raids, you do this raid, then you do to this raid. And then you finally do the final raid, and it feels more spaced out. I forget, there's the Ogre raid, and then there's the big the big Foundry raid, and then finally there's the Hellfire Peninsula, Hellfire Temple raid, the Black Temple basically. And there's just a lot of interesting stuff, It's just unfortunate the way it was released originally. It felt like, what's going on? Are we getting any more expansion? This expansion? What's happening? But that initial really good leveling experience would only be enhanced if the gear worked in the suggestion. You got the getting rings and trinkets from, because here's the thing: rings and trinkets are always the hardest thing to get.
Oh yeah.
Always, 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 always. Imagine you will now know a guaranteed way to get them. Sure, it might be a lot of work, but how to do it. Huge improvement, in my opinion.
One interesting thing, you play WoW Remix and you just have to play. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can play and you don't have to think about gear. You don't have to think about earning currency, because no matter what you do, whether you're killing mobs, whether you're doing quests, whether you're doing raids and dungeons, you just get currency. It just falls into your lap. You don't have to worry about leveling professions. That's kind of a side tangent I have there. You can just play the game. You can just enjoy the story, enjoy playing the dungeons and scenarios and raids. You can just play, and that's kind of, it's weird. It's weird how much fun it is just to play the game and not sit there worrying about, oh, do I have my 5th piece of tier set? Oh, I can't equip this new chest I got because it break my set, and you don't have to do any of that micromanagey stuff. You can just play the game and have fun.
We talk about like ways to have player engagement that is healthy. This is that, right? What you just said right there is the perfect reasoning why. You take the math and hard decision making out of it, which inherently makes it a more enjoyable experience.
What did we talk about in the pre-show? The concept of you preserve the good and throw out the bad?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that idea. You basically preserve the best part of playing any game is playing the game. The worst part of playing any game is, oh God, I have to do math now.
Yeah. Or having to stop to replace gear, or having to go back to the hub city.
I gotta go back to the hub city and turn all my stuff into mold
because my bags are full or whatever, right? Like there's so many things that take you out of the game and out of the moment, and then this is just like, no, just go have fun. Here are all the tools you need to just stay engaged.
Well, before we move on to one other thing, I do want to mention also they hotfixed in some shirts. Sorry if you're upset about that. I don't. I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do it.
I should note that I think people were upset that there weren't any shirts, because one of the things
transmog.
Pandaria,
transmog. You're gonna want shirts if you got transmog. Yeah, absolutely. But at any rate, if you're upset about that, there are now shirts. I do, however, want to mention something a little bit more serious in that they just adjusted tuning, and this is an interesting bug, but it's one that's happened before. Blizzard's scaling can be kind of aggressive.
Oh yeah.
There's in the past, I remember hitting certain breakpoints while leveling, and mobs go from "Please don't hit me, Mr. Saw" to "I will destroy you" in one level. Like, you hit the swoosh, and then suddenly they're hitting you for 3 times your health point. So they've kind of hot flicks that down a little bit
with a series of fixes to do that, like adjusting how your cloak is scaling, adjusting how creatures' health is, moving some of the gems not scaling appropriately and making them better. And in particular, it was Timeless Isle, Isle of Giants, and Isle of Thunder that were really affected, because when players got there, they were just getting smoked.
Yeah, because in the original game, those zones all suddenly took up the difficulty a bit, and it feels like when they were changing it around to work for the remix. They didn't take into account just how much of a jump they were giving them. Because I think we all remember when we went to the Timeless Isle the first time, it was you suddenly were like, oh, okay.
And all of Pandaria kind of scales with you. There are some level floors for some of the zones, but all of Pandaria scales to you. So you can go to most zones, not all zones. I thought you could go to all zones, and then I went to a zone and I landed my dragon, and I just immediately got one shot by something because, actually it doesn't all scale really low. But it's like they're kind of like level breakpoints. I don't know exactly where they are, where Blizzard is starting to drop higher quality threads for your cloak. And threads are another thing that just drop while you're playing the game from any content you're doing. Threads get added to your cloak automatically, and they provide power bonuses. They might provide intellect or stamina or speed or haste or mastery or whatever. You pick them up, they're applied to your cloak, you get this bonus. And it feels like when you hit a certain level where you would start to get higher level threads dropping, you would start getting mobs would suddenly start hitting much harder because they expect you to suddenly have this power jump, which it takes you a while to get to.
Yeah, I haven't gotten those threads yet, guys. Oh God.
Yeah.
I think also, like, you'll notice if you're looking at this, they've decreased the health of creatures in heroic scenarios between 20 and 25%, depending on your level. And higher level players will see enemies incur a larger decrease, which implies that as you were getting up in level, the amount of health they were getting was much bigger. Health and damage of creatures not on the Timeless Isle, Isle of Giants, and Isle of Thunder have been reduced. Several spell gems that were not scaling up or down correctly based on player level have been adjusted so that they provide a more appropriate scaling effect. This includes Cold Front, Windweaver, Vampiric Aura, and Lightning Rod. So there's a bunch of this different stuff that, as Joe mentioned, there's these spell gems with shielding effects aren't causing threat anymore, which I guess was a problem if you're like, you're a healer and your gem puts up a shield and suddenly everyone turns to you and goes, eat you. Like, oh God, no. And Righteous Frenzy wasn't canceling upon the end of combat, and the Time Runner's Vial mana regeneration has been significantly increased. So basically, it's a variety of fixes. It's not just nerfs to their health. It's also a bunch of stuff that wasn't working properly getting an adjustment. So hopefully that fixes the problem to a degree.
The interesting thing about this cloak is that the cloak doesn't have a cap. There's not like a cap on these buffs you can collect and apply to it.
You can become Death.
Yeah, you can become Death. So I think part of the scaling problem is that Blizzard expects at certain levels you will have become Death because you can upgrade this cloak so much to infinity. And I have not gotten to the point where I'm having those problems, but I'm glad they are addressing them before this goes from being fun to being, ow, I'm getting one-shot by everything. Because I'm not a very good evoker.
Yep. I think in overall, though, Remix has got a lot of potential. I do like the idea of them applying this to other possibilities. Really looking forward to seeing what else they do. So, yeah, what else? But I think we've talked about Remix a bit. We could talk about one thing we haven't mentioned for Cataclysm Classic yet. We should mention that raids are launching next week.
Yes.
So if you're wondering when are we going to start getting raids, I think it's going to still be the first raids we saw in Cataclysm. It's going to be Blackwing Descent, Temple of the Four Winds, and the one with the Twilight Hammer up in the oh bloody heck, it's Bastion of Twilight. Thank you, Brain, for eventually giving it to me. So yeah, those three are going to be there. So yeah, that's cool. We haven't talked at all really about the fact that Diablo 4 Season 4 is out. It's been out for about a week now. I've been playing it. Liz, you've been playing it, right?
I've been playing it, but I made either the mistake or the excellent decision, it's a toss-up, to play through the campaign again.
I think that's usually a pretty good decision, in my opinion.
Yeah. They really encourage you to skip the campaign when you start a new season, but the campaign is some of the best gameplay in the game with these unique encounters. And, I mean, not just the story, but the gameplay is really good because you have all of these unique scenarios, these unique bosses that you never see again.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, I'm glad I'm replaying the campaign. On the other hand, I can't engage in some of the mechanics until I finish it, like the new Hell Tides, like the Iron Wolves quests.
Although you could I can't think you can do some of the Hell Tides.
You can't. You cannot until you finish the story.
Oh, that's annoying.
You can.
I knew you could do them in levels 1 and 2, but I didn't know that was only if you skipped the story. And that's a shame because in this particular case, Season 4 doesn't have much in the way of new stuff. It's got a little bit with the Iron Wolves, but that's basically it. So why would I want to skip all this stuff to go do that?
Yeah. I mean, it does sound like Helltides are kind of the thing to do right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little disappointed that I don't get any Helltides. But, like, thematically, the Helltides start up after you finish the story and, blood is raining down from the sky and it's everywhere. It's wandering around Sanctuary. So I haven't gotten a chance to do that. Have you done many of the new Helltides, Matt?
No, because I'm doing exactly what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
We're both the game.
We're both doing. Yeah, we're both making the best worst decision.
Yeah, well, the thing is that like we said before, I may actually go and do the Helltides on the character I have who's level 85. I've got a level 100, I've got a level 85, and then I got a whole bunch of characters I started new seasons with and then didn't get them anywhere. Well, my level 100 is from last season. So I'm thinking with the gear reset, I do want to go back and play my other characters who are higher level. So I'm thinking I'll go do some Helltides. But for right now, I'm like getting to level 20 on my barbarian, my latest new barbarian, because what else would I do? Play another class, experience something else. What's wrong with you people? I do also have a druid I want to play, but I haven't really. I'll just be upfront with this. Every time I log my druid in, I look at his face and go, he looks too much like me, and I delete him. All the barbarian and druid, doing a male barbarian or druid in this game is really hard for me because let's face it, they all look like me. They have big noses and big beards, and they're either huge muscle guys or kind of bulky. And I have the basic body type of a druid from Diablo 4. That's what I look like. So it's really hard. My body is like, it's me. It's just me. Delete. At least with barbarians, I can roll as a female character, but I can't do that with a druid because then it looks like my wife, and it's still weird. It's like, no, I can't play a character who's my wife. I can't, every time she gets hurt, I'm gonna feel bad. So yeah, I haven't been able to get myself to play a druid. I got no interest in necromancers, despite the fact that everybody is telling me they are absolutely overpowered this season. I mean, people will come to my door, knock on my door, and want to answer it like, "Hey, what's going on? Did you know necromancers are the most powerful class this season?" Yeah.
Yeah, necromancers have some sort of complex. And I say that as a necromancer. People are telling me that suddenly minion necromancers are the most powerful thing, and I've been playing a minion necromancer since day one, kids.
I liked it before it was cool.
I did like it before it was cool, and I've never had any problems with it. I don't know what you're talking about. I was having this conversation with Phil the other day that he's like, I want to write a post of advice about playing in the new season, and one of those things is, World Tier 2 is the place to level. And I'm like, World Tier 2 is always the place to level. As long as you're good. As long as you're a necromancer with an unstoppable minion army. I mean, come on. But apparently.
Now, why don't you have a minion army? Because I'm a rogue. Literally everything I do is alone.
That sounds like a personal problem. But, yes, necromancers are kind of having a moment because, okay, minion army is great. They could be a little flimsy. Your minion army are skeletons, so they aren't very intelligent. Their brains rotted away. They're just bones. So, I mean, they have their issues, but minions have gotten significantly buffed this season. Yeah. Which also helps out druids a little, because they've made some changes to make kind of druid summoning builds a little more viable.
Yeah, which was necessary, really. Let's be upfront.
Very necessary. Because I thought minions can summon a cloud of bats to attack my enemies. That's what I want to do. A bunch of ravens that are just going to peck people's eyes out. Yes, I'm doing that. Except they were pretty weak. Now that is better. I am also on team wants to try a druid, but I'm way too busy playing my 5th necromancer.
Yeah, I know. It's so just like, guys, it's not that I don't want to, but yeah, I have to do this first. And unfortunately,
clearly,
every season I have to do it first. So yeah, it's just a thing I have to do. But yeah,
it feels like the Helltides thing is. It feels like they've taken the stuff that was fun about. Okay, Matt's about to disagree with me about this. The stuff that was fun about our vampire loot pinata.
No, I do think that they are trying to make it. I think they are trying to incorporate elements from that. I'm not even saying that it didn't have fun elements. It wasn't necessarily to my liking.
Yeah.
But I think part of that was just the fact that I didn't really like the vampire season all that much. I mean, the storyline wasn't that good. I felt like the storyline was better in Act 1. I mean, in Season 1. And the Season 1 storyline is very much just, hey, I'm a crazy guy in a cart. Bring me demon hearts. Okay. I can't see any way this could go badly. If nothing else. It is
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary proves to me once and for all that absolutely nobody in Sanctuary has even the remotest idea of what constitutes a good idea. Because, how would they? How would you know? My husband has been turned into an undying flesh monster who just won't stop screaming. I'm just going to, stab him with the knife and then leave the knife in him. You do what you want. It's like, okay, this seems like a great idea, all told. I'm not in any way, shape, or form conflicted. So yeah, I definitely think that the Helltides are an attempt to bring back what people liked about the Vampire events, and I don't dislike that idea, because I do think that Helltides. The thing I really like about Helltides now, I did do one. So I when the PTR was up, I like the bounty system. It kind of reminds me of all things. It reminds me of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you would basically tick off these people enough that they put a bounty out on your head, and then a new, more powerful guy would show up to try and cave your head in. And they could be hard. Like, they could be, like, real nasty. And that's what I liked about what they're doing with Helltides, is you can eventually get to the point where, like, major league demons show up, practically little mini world bosses. And they had this before. There was like this weird assassin monster who would show up. He was always level 72, even if you were like level 20. And he would just try desperately to rip your head off. Now those guys show up because of what you're doing. Yeah. It's like hell responds to you trying to stop it, which makes more sense. I think the Helltides are working in a way to try and bring those elements forward.
And that's exactly what the Vampire Loot Pinata was. Even though, this is using some new words, but you'd go to the Vampire Loot Pinata, and I'm going to keep calling it that because, one, I don't remember what it was called, and two, it was a Vampire Loot Pinata. So you go into this event, you kill vampires, and the more vampires you kill, the more the vampires take notice of you, and eventually they're going to send more murderous vampires out for you.
Yeah, it's like, in my opinion, it was a better way of what they tried to do in season 3 with the Summonal Herald guy.
Yeah.
Like, you could go and, like, jam stuff into a brazier and boom. That felt dumb. Like, why are we having to call him? Like, I don't have to pick up the phone and call my butt kicker and be like, hey, I'm over here if you want to come step on me. It's like, I like that it's in this and in the original Vampire Loot Pinata, which is a brilliant name, so we're calling it that. It was because of what you were doing. You're doing things that get them to respond to you, which I think is better.
It's like you don't have to call up the butcher on the phone and tell him to come over for a fight. He just shows up. Yeah. He shows up because he wants to murder you.
Yeah. Wants to murder you. What's really great is when you get, like, the butcher showing up while you're doing that, because he shows up more outside in the world now. So you're fighting the Kripos, the Mythorc, and while you're fighting that guy, suddenly the butcher shows up. It's like, like, I did not expect you. So yeah, I think overall, the loot stuff, so far the loot system we've already talked about at length, and I don't think that I have anything new to add other than, yes, it feels better. I know some people don't like it. I actually saw a review of somebody who usually shares my opinion of things, but he didn't like it at all. And I was like, wow, I'm enjoying it. So, there are people who don't like it, but I think it's working good. And Liz, you were going to say something.
One thing I miss is you used to be able to go, and it's like you could level any piece of gear 5 times at the blacksmith, and it was relatively low cost and relatively easy to do. Yeah, for the first couple. And so I would just always do that. I would always do the first couple. And now it's a little more resource intensive to upgrade things. So it feels like at low levels, you are getting fewer opportunities for upgrades.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think where the new upgrade system is really going to pay off is going to be at those higher levels where you really get a chance to kind of grow with your gear. Because at early levels, you're just getting gear everywhere. New gear, new gear, new gear.
Yeah, I was going to say, it feels like that's what they're steering you towards in Season 4. It's much more along the lines of, not happy with that axe? Toss it. It's like, oh, you don't like the weapons you got? Trust me, something else is coming in like 2 kill. And while you don't get as much stuff, like there's not as many items dropping, when they do drop, they do tend to be better. So I get you. I understand what you're saying. I actually used to love doing that myself. Like, I'd always, even with like blues, I would get them up to like level 2 or 3 because it was easy. So,
and it can be a big power boost. Anyway, I mean, you don't have some of the problems you had in previous seasons where you really needed to upgrade that gear. Like, a weapon that has this particular effect on it, and I absolutely need this effect for my build to work, and I can't equip anything else until I get this effect from another piece of gear. Because now you can just, if you have a legendary affix, you can just scrap that item, and you have the affix that you can apply to another item, and you can scrap that item and have that affix. You just have the affix. So
yeah, you've already learned it. You don't have to worry about, okay, I'm going to lose my special thing. No, you just put it on everything you get.
I think this solves this solves a lot of problems with gear. I think maybe it doesn't feel as good at low levels, but as you progress through the game, it's going to be a lot better because you're not going to have these awkward gear juggling things because you can just, if you find a new piece of gear, just equip it. If it has the stats you want, just equip it, and you can slap any legendary affix you already have onto it. Yep. So overall, I think the loot system is a great change, and it's well overdue.
Yeah, it's much improved. I would agree. Joe, I'm assuming you haven't got a chance to play it yet because I know you're real busy.
I am playing a druid in Remist, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I figured.
It's
go ahead.
Is hard to find the time because it's like
there's too much.
I want to play some Diablo 4.
Yeah, that's why I haven't gotten to play Remists because I've been playing mostly Diablo 4.
I want to play Remists. I still need to make raids with my guild, which means I can't completely slack off in World of Warcraft. Just slack off like a little bit. And then also I would like to finish playing Fallout New Vegas, but where do you find the hours in the day? I don't know.
Eventually, if you don't sleep, you die, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, challenge.
Whilst we were talking about that, one thing I did forget to mention, and I think it's pretty much worth mentioning, is WoW Classic's Season of Discovery extended its Phase 3. It's still in Phase 3, and I guess the PTR for Phase 4 is soon, with little finger quotes. You can't see me doing them, but I'm doing them. So,
and I mean, the interesting thing about the PTR is that WoW Classic Season of Discovery has famously not done PTRs. They want to surprise you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the exciting thing about Season of Discoveries is you don't know until it's there. So I hope they can continue to keep that surprise. They have said they aren't testing content, they're testing class changes. You're going to log on and be able to get a feel for your class with dungeons or battlegrounds. I think they said dungeons and training dummies. And just test all the class mechanics and all the runes, but not see the content. So I hope that works out. I hope this doesn't just mean we get a ton of data mining and we know everything on day one, because the mystery is part of the fun.
Yeah. And I do also think it's interesting that one of the things they're trying to do is test, like they're going to have template characters with all runes and abilities and level 60 tier sets so you can test out the bonuses. Mm-hmm. And this is like, we haven't had tier sets up to this point because, tier sets were, usually dropped in the original raid tiers. So I am interested to see what that's going to be. Like, what are the tier sets they're going to be introducing? So,
are they just going to be the original tier sets? I don't think we know.
I mean, they could even be the dungeon sets that were kind of like tier 0.5. Mm-hmm. They had the original dungeon sets, and then they had the upgraded versions that you could get by running like not raid content, but just below raid content or like smaller raid content. Like I remember there was a Upper Blackrock Spire, Lower Blackrock Spire, and like Shoal Mounts where a lot of that stuff dropped. I remember doing a lot of UBRS runs for dungeon set stuff. And, for all we know, we'll get those to test. No idea. But I am interested in the, as you pointed out, the PTR, because they didn't have a PTR before.
Yeah.
And they're not going to test anything but like really class balance and some stuff. It's like, why do you need to test specifically that stuff? But I mean, it makes sense because, they're trying it a completely new system. So who knows? But I am interested to see how that works out and thought we should talk about it. And right now, then we've got enough time to answer a couple of questions. So we're going to move on to questions. If you've got a question for the site, for this podcast, sorry, the site you used. Oh, actually, you would use the same channel. So yeah, it's still good. You would basically go to our Q and podcast questions Patreon channel. Discord channel. Sorry. Oof. However, do be on Patreon with us. Liz is going to do one of those at the end of the show. But you go to that channel if you're just wanting to ask us a question. If you're a patron, we have the Patron Q and podcast questions channel for patrons because, you guys are the reason we are able to continue to do a podcast and keep the site running. So, yeah, we'd like to give you the first crack at your questions. And finally, if you've got a question, you don't want to use Discord, I don't know why not, but sure, why not? You don't have to do nothing you don't want to do. If you like emailing, however, you can email us at podcast@blizzardwatch.com with subject line podcast of Blizzard Watch so we know it's for this show. I was very good and didn't steal the 2 Lore Watch related questions. So Joe will be happy when we do the next Lore Watch. And at this point, I'm going to just read a question. So this one's from Tetsemi. Question for Blizzard Watch Podcast. What if they made a Diablo game, but an FPS like Cyberpunk 2077 or Starfield? What would it look like, and what type of things would you like to see in it? Also, would the gore factor go up or down? Do either of you have an answer for this one before I tackle it?
I mean, I have plenty of opinions, but go ahead.
Liz?
I don't have an answer on this one.
Okay, first off, don't do this if you keep me trapped in the from my character's perspective, you can't see your character thing. I don't want that. I want to be able to look at my character without having to like take a screenshot or what have you. I love Cyberpunk 2077. That is the one thing I hate. I hate that I can't go to third person over the shoulder view. I don't want to be always in first person perspective. It makes me kind of queasy. Don't like it. So that right off the bat. Secondly, in terms of what it would look like, I think there's so many games that have something like that. It's not hard to think of what it would look like. I mean, play God of War, there's dozens of games. In a way, Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West are perfect models for how a Diablo game like that would work. Because that's Aloy. Aloy can be stealthy, or she can be an arrow launching assassin maniac. She can go melee. You could do a lot of different things with that kind of model and just break it up into different quote unquote classes. So I think that's pretty easy to see what it would be like in terms of games like that. What kind of things would I like to see in it? I mean, I just told you my character. If they don't put barbarians in it, I'm not going to play it. So, barbarians. I would like to see them do a game where you don't become the all powerful slayer of everything as quickly. Imagine a game where the first 10 levels are just you going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So many horrible demons. Like take a page from Resident Evil, like 7 and Village. Don't take a page from some of the other ones. Some of the other ones are bad. But the most recent ones where they make it hard and kind of gross longer. And you're just a person. You're not like the Nephilim or, you don't have Lilith's blood in you or any of that stuff. You're just a person. Imagine a Diablo game that really focused on the horror of living in Sanctuary. You could eventually get up to the point where you're killing everything, but take more time to get there. That would be for me. As for the gore factor, up. Not that I really think it needs to go up. Like, frankly, there's not much up to go to. There's been Diablo games where literally rooms are just painted in like gore and viscera. I don't think there's, the line is, it's very hard not to, if the line is limbo, you can just walk under it. So, yeah.
We were just talking about Diablo 4, where a major in-game event is when blood literally rains from the sky and covers your character and pools in the ground under your feet. And
there's growths coming out of the ground. Like, what is that thing?
Yes. So you would just get that, except you would be in the middle of it instead of looking down at this tiny character.
Yeah.
That could be,
Joe?
So Matt kind of hit the nail on the head and basically went exactly where I was going to say with this is these games already exist, and they have for a very long time, longer than you might think they have. Games that are very gory FPS games that fit the whole demonic incursion style. The groundwork's already there. You can go back to
London.
I was going to say Helltide, or Hellgate London. Excuse me.
Hellgate London.
Hellgate London was a third person though, but I'll get into that in a second. Go back to Clive Barker's Undying. Go back to that's a game that probably nobody remembers but me.
No, I remember it.
Yay! I'm not alone. But even modern ones like Remnant 2 just released not too long ago. I think it was end of last year, something like that.
Heck. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it wasn't necessarily the best game ever, but Godfall is exactly this, just sparkly instead of gory.
Yeah, so like all these games kind of already exist, and the framework is already there. And I mean, like, I'm going to throw this out there because I'm sure because of the visual aesthetic, people don't consider this. Borderlands exists.
Oh, yeah.
The Borderlands games are FPS Diablo with just cel-shaded graphics and a humorous vibe. Change the graphics and it's Diablo.
Like Destiny.
Destiny as well. Destiny's got that same sort of vibe. A lot of eldritch horror stuff going on in Destiny. A lot of these alien races and are presented in a very demonic way when as they appear out of nowhere, they come out of rifts and spawn from the shadows. These already exist. Now, Hellgate London, I still maintain was the best game that never had a chance.
It was very good. I agree that it was good. It had problems like a lot of times because the computers really weren't up to running it. It was kind of like Crysis before Crysis was Crysis.
Yes.
So computers were like, "Oh God, help me!" And in 5 years when the better chips are out, this game will look great. Unfortunately, the game will not get there, but it'll be great.
There was a point where I had interviewed Bill Roper shortly after Hellgate London went sideways because that was a whole thing, and sorry for him and what happened with him and his family with that. But that game should have been released now. That should have been a game that they were making today because the tools that are available, it was so ambitious, and they could have done it as a first-person shooter, and you would have had sci-fi Diablo first-person shooter, and it was gory, and it was definitely rated M for mature, and it was everything you would expect from that. Man, I missed that game. But it's already there. The framework's there. So I think we already know what it would look like.
There.
Doom, yeah, well, there you go, Doom.
The most recent Dooms are basically just Diablo.
Except instead of gear, you're getting health and ammo.
Yeah, but you get health and ammo, essentially. Ammo, it's very similar. And what really gets me about it is not just the gameplay, which is very similar, the aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
I was playing the 2016 Doom, and my wife walked in the room and said, "Do they have a Diablo shooter now?" I was like, no, I know he looks like he's from Diablo, but he's actually a demon from hell.
Yeah.
So yes, he is from Diablo. I don't know. I think one person actually described it as, what if Link from Zelda went to Sanctuary? You've got Doom.
Well, I mean, that's a whole other fan theory that Link became the Doom guy.
Yeah, but he also, in a lot of ways, it's similar play-wise. But,
oh, yeah.
So, Liz, you got anything on this one before we move on?
Nothing that y'all haven't already discussed or I haven't already cut into the conversation with.
All right. This one's kind of a jokey one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What do we have to... Oh, this is from Octomos. What do we have to do to get a Devilsaur mount? And why doesn't Blizzard want us to have a good life? I thought there was a Devilsaur mount.
No, I don't think there is.
There are raptor mounts, and there are raptor mounts you can get even if you aren't a troll, but they're little raptors,
Yeah, I thought that the one on the island of giants, the big dinosaur Ungasta, is that his name? Undasta?
Undasta.
I thought Undasta dropped a little Undasta, but I guess he doesn't. Put in a little Undasta, guys. Really, why don't you have this already? Why are there not Devilsaurs? As far as why Blizzard doesn't want us to have a good life, I don't know. I think I'm pretty nice. I think I should have a good life, and if they're the ones stopping me, I feel like that's their problem.
So Undasta does drop them out, but it's not Undasta. It's a Direhorn.
Oh, that's so bad. That's so bad. You should be a little Undasta. Why would you not want it to be that?
So basically, you kill Undasta and you rip out the Direhorn that he ate, 10 seconds before out of its belly and ride around on it.
Thanks for saving me.
We have a Brontosaur, right? We have a Brontosaur. Why can't we have a Devilsaur?
That thing's enormous.
It's huge.
I don't get it. It's bigger than a Devilsaur mount would be, especially when you realize that Devilsaurs as hunter pets shrink way down.
All hunter pets do that, which is very odd.
Yeah, but not all of them shrink as far down because they're not that big in the first place.
True.
Who's the one? I tamed the one that's in the one in Orgrimmar, Siege of Orgrimmar. Do you remember the one? I don't remember his name. Thok? I think it's Thok. Oh.
Yeah.
I tamed that guy, and he went from raid boss size to shoomp. Wow, he's smaller than I am now. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know why we don't have them. I think we should have them. Unfortunately,
listen, give it time. We've been seeing a bunch of stuff that we've been asking for getting released or getting tested, or they're seeing how it goes. You might see this. This might be something that pops up. Although I will agree that we've had a couple expansions where it would have fit perfectly. But yeah, maybe someday. Maybe if we keep asking nicely enough, maybe we'll get one.
Technically speaking, we're right on the line, but
we got time for one more. Do it.
This one's not One more, it's actually two more, and then a response from me. This is from Speedlancer originally, which he's saying, why have we never been able to make sandwiches in WoW? With all the wild things we were cooked up throughout each expansion, especially Shadowlands, it feels a little weird that we haven't added such a simple fare. Rob Flanagan then responded with, society in general took too long to get to the sandwich. We had bread and salted meat for millennia before the Earl of Sandwich had a gambling problem and wanted a Reuben. And then I came in, note from Matt, no, he didn't. The sandwich Ryoji Aum existed in China back in 1046 BC.
So here's your fun bit of lore. This is a question that was posed and was a massive thread on the WoW forums back in 2020 of why there are no sandwiches in WoW.
Yeah, it's because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't.
I mean, we know full well that the ancient Greeks, the Romans, all sorts of different variations of I got bread, I got meat, what do I do? The actual sandwich, as we think of it, is two slices of bread with like something inside it. That's fairly recent. Even the sandwich that the Earl of Sandwich supposedly made up wasn't that. It was like, it was more like a pita pocket.
Yeah.
But regardless, cultures throughout the world have had these things forever. As soon as we had bread, we were immediately trying to put things in or around it. We just immediately go, "Ooh, wait! We can put something in this." It is something about.
I can carry this in my hand. Sweet.
Yeah, I don't have to use tools. Humans hate tools.
Hand rolls with for sushi hand rolls, like stuff like that. Like it's essentially a sandwich just with nori instead of bread.
I mean, and for that matter, as people have pointed out, I mean, hot dogs are sandwiches. Hamburgers are sandwiches. There's a lot of sandwiches.
And listen. I you know what? I hope we never get sandwiches. You know why? I want them to keep adding fish bags to the game because that is hilarious.
Nope.
The stuff we eat out of bags in WoW is like, it's like, what can I cram in this? What can I boil? What can I make warm? Is it possibly edible? It's going in the bag. Everybody's eating from the bag. Let's go. I love how weird and wild WoW food is because it just, half of it makes no logical sense, right? And I love it for that. I love the fact that like it's still got this cartoonish like vibe to it, and I hope that never changes.
Liz, you were saying something?
I lost it. Carry on.
Okay, well, I think we're pretty much done with this, but I will say that nothing for me is ever going to beat my first food conundrum, which was when I realized I was looting milk off of people's bodies in glasses, and I was drinking it. And 2. I can't eat a cherry pie until I'm level 45. I'm sitting there. I think it was in South Shore. I was sitting there. I just killed. First of all, I just killed a bear, and the bear dropped a cherry pie, and I couldn't eat it because the cherry pie was for level 45 and up. And I'm like, so many questions. Where was the bear hiding this cherry pie? How did the bear have a cherry pie?
The picnic basket, clearly.
Why can't I eat this cherry pie? So yes. Why not more food mysteries? Why is that one cook? I can't remember what was it. I think it was Shadowlands or maybe even Legion or Battle for Azeroth. But the cook in Dalaran who just absolutely destroyed everything he made.
He's from Pandaland. He followed us to there.
Yeah, but he was in that expansion. I just remember him because he was like burning everything. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
No
Ragnaros doesn't burn things this bad. Yes,
that's it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, Nomi, you burn everything, man. But yeah, that's the end of that. So. Liz, first for you, are you doing the Patreon thing this week, or do we just not?
I do wanna end with a little update on Patreon. We are doing a Patreon pledge drive this week, and the site is doing all right, but our Patreon is a little low, and kind of in general, Patreon tends to trend down over time. And so by doing this pledge drive, mostly what I want to do is make sure that we are staying stable. Our goal is to get around $4,500 a month to $5,000 a month. That lets us keep the site going. It lets us pay all of those expenses that keep a site online. It lets us pay writers, editors, podcasters, whom you see before you, or see with your imaginary eyes before you. And to do that, we need your support. If you can support us on Patreon, we appreciate it. It lets us keep doing what we do. We're currently making $4,407 a month, which is great. That's just a little under our goal. And I would like to get it back up there into that $4,500 because that lets us keep doing the stuff we do. It lets us expand a little, do more content, and do more posts every day. So if you're able, please support us on Patreon. That is patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. And I understand if you can't, if you aren't financially able, we also appreciate you just being here. Listen to the podcast, read the website, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Liz. Joe, now I turn to you with an equally expectant look.
Well, on that note, and following it back up, Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, better chance at having your question answered on our podcast with a Q and an ads-free site experience. And thank you to all of our new Patreon subscribers.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Again, this has been the Blizzard Watch podcast. If you've got a question for us, you can send it to our email, which is podcast@blizzardwatch.com, subject line podcast or Blizzard Watch, or you can hit us up on Discord. If you're a patron, you can go to our patron Q and podcast questions channel on Discord. But even if you're not, you can just go straight to our Q and podcast questions channel. We like getting questions. It's great. It helps us with the show. So feel free to ask us those anywhere at any time. This is, it's really something I really enjoyed every week is this show. Sometimes it's the reason I get up, which considering we do it at night, doesn't say great things about my life, but it is still, this is one of the highlights. So thank you guys very much for making it possible and for helping us continue to do it all these years. And if I think about the fact that the show is over 9 years old now, I'm going to start crying and I'll never stop. So yeah. This has been the Blizzard Watch podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Liz and Joe for all they do to make the show possible. We'll be back next week.